My name is Chima Onya. I am an international student. I'm in my junior year and I'm majoring in electrical and computing engineering.
My name is Jennifer Iwenofu. I am from Nigeria, so I'm an international student. I am a biochemistry pre-med major and I'm a junior here at Georgia Southern University.
Hi, I'm Daniel Strongman. I'm a senior electrical engineering major, and I'm Nigerian.
So, can you give me a brief description of what SARS is for those who do not know?
SARS is basically, it's an acronym for the Special Anti-Robbery Squad. And they're basically a police unit that was made in the 90s to reduce robbery, as the name says. And over time, they became more violent and more aggressive in the ways that they carried out their operations. So over time, they became less of a police force and more of a criminal unit.
Since they were initially made to protect the people from like armed robberies and stuff, when did you notice that what was the point where you noticed that they really were not protecting?
For all my life, I've never seen them protect anyone. So they started this group in 1992. I would say from when I became conscious of things that were happening in Nigeria, maybe like 8 years ago. They haven't been protecting anyone. They've just been labeling people as deviants and as what is the word? There's this term called Yahoo Yahoo boy in Nigeria, and that's people that like are fraudulent. So then I know from about like 8 years ago, I've heard stories of how if you had like an iPhone, you were deemed as a Yahoo Yahoo boy, and then at that point they would come attack you. So about like 8 years ago, I noticed personally that they were not actually protecting the citizens.
I wouldn't say it was an instant thing. It wasn't an instant thing because if you talk to different people, different Nigerians, and maybe not people our age, maybe like parents, things like because I left Nigeria fairly young. I went to boarding school up from like 10 to 16. So I spent like 3 months out of the year at home. Like the remaining 9 months, I was in school. So I wouldn't say like I have experiences with them directly, but I can't say my parents have had experiences and just people around me in general, just family, friends have had experiences with them. And I wouldn't say it's a particular time. It's just gotten worse over the years. Like if you ask people, people have like different timelines of it. So some older people can say that it's always just been there. Some people can say like there's just different timelines to it. It's just not. It's been a gradual process, but over the past few weeks, it's just gotten really bad. Yeah, and that is exactly how the End SARS movement started. But yeah, it's just gotten really bad over the years.
Has SARS affected any relatives or people you know in Nigeria?
Not. So for me, I know maybe one or two people that have been affected, but not in an extreme way. Usually just in a monetary way, like with money and bribery. So me personally, I don't know more than about 2-3 people that have been affected personally that I'm related to. So yeah.
It has affected people that I know. I actually have a friend here whose brother went to school outside Nigeria, and he literally came back in the span of January to March. He had been stopped by SARS twice. The first time, I don't remember the first occurrence, but I remember the second occurrence. He was driving a rented car, and they, like I said earlier, they kind of judge you from the way you look. And they were like, how is this young man driving this car? And they stopped him and they took him. And as soon as this happened, he was driving with his friend that called his mom, like, oh my God, SARS is here. Please come. We need help before they take him. And because it was around his area, his mom was able to come. And I think what I don't like about this story is the SARS really disrespected the mother because she was a woman. So when her husband came, that's when they were like, okay, we're gonna free him and stuff like that. So it's happened very, very close to home.
Mm.
Yes. And yes.
So this actually happened to my father. There was this one time we were okay, so I went to boarding school. I said that before. I went to boarding school, and essentially how we were set up was that like over the weekends, parents could just come in, like bring some food, bring some snacks, whatever. If you just want to spend time with your children, you could easily come in on the weekends. And I remember I was in 8th grade. Yes, I was in the 8th grade, and my dad was supposed to come in, and for my birthday, I remember my birthday was on a Sunday, and my dad was supposed to come in. And then he told me he called and he told me he was going to come at like 10 a.m. because he had other stuff to do for the rest of the day. And okay, 10 a.m. I was expecting him. 11 a.m. I didn't really mind because African time is a real thing and my parents are late to everything. 11 a.m. I didn't really mind. 12 a.m. I also still didn't mind. But 1, 2, 3, 4, he didn't show up till the end of the day. And then okay, at night I called my mom. I tried calling him, but it wasn't going through. Then I tried calling my mom. My mom picked up and she was crying, and I asked her why. And essentially, as my dad was coming over to me, because he was with his brother, as he was coming over to me, he got stopped by a SARS operative. And essentially, they were just, at first, it was because there's this toxic tradition, which is police and SARS. When they stop you, they say, "Do you have anything for the boys?" Anything for the boys. Essentially, just like asking for some kind of bribe or any. Especially if they notice like they look around for like your outfit, your phones, your car, like what you're driving. Like they just immediately spot things like that. And if you just somehow appear to look nice, they try to get things out of you and just extortion essentially.
Oh, okay.
And my dad was not for it that day. He was just I know he wasn't in a good mood that day. He just wasn't for it. And he just didn't want to. Usually he's the kind of person to just just hand out some money and just move on. But he just wasn't for it that day. And it happened that his license expired, and then he applied for a new license, but it was supposed to come in the mail.
Mm.
So they gave him like a temporary like document. I think it was like a sheet of paper, but it was stamped. It was a government. It was 100% certified. And they asked him for his license that day. I know he said he wasn't driving recklessly or anything. He did not like disobey any rules. First of all, remember the SARS is an special anti-robbery squad. They have absolutely nothing, no business stopping cars.
Mm.
They are not policemen. They have absolutely no business stopping cars. But then they stopped him. And these people, first of all, these people are loaded with guns. Why are you loaded with guns? Isn't that a bit excessive? And that's where the government comes in because that's another topic. But so they stopped him and then they started harassing him because he refused. Like usually what they do is they just push you to the side and they really just let you marinate. Like they just frustrate you, just ignore you, just keep you there till like you get so frustrated and you just end up giving them money. But that day my dad simply wasn't budging. And he was with his brother and essentially they hit him, they treated him. And this is like these are people, I'm gonna guess these people were like in their 20s, and my father at that time was in like his 40s. So you can imagine the disrespect. And in my culture, elders are seen at like older people are just they're at the top of the food chain. There's just so much respect that you are supposed to show them just for the fact that they're older. But the way they treated my dad that day, like they hit him, he was just so mad that he got home. Like when he came back home, he had so many injuries, and I think he had a dislocated shoulder and a sprained ankle and just like a bunch of bruises all over him. And his brother too, but like a different set of injuries. But that day, He really messed my mom up. And that was essentially why he never came up to me. And this petrified my mom so much that wherever, like, because obviously people started thinking of ways to like avoid SARS because of how like they had degenerated over the years. So they were like on Facebook or like there'll be WhatsApp groups or like on radio just announcing where the SARS hotspots are. Like kind of like how police set speed traps.
Yeah.
People would just like blog it and like send messages about like where the hotspots were. Whenever my mom like got wind of any of them, she would literally a trip that would usually take 20 minutes, she would drive an hour. She would do it. She would really. She was so ready to do it. Multiple times she did it. Even though she had, there was absolutely nothing wrong. She had all her documents. There was nothing wrong with the car. As she had absolutely done nothing wrong. Just because she was so paranoid, she would go around. Now make a 20-minute trip an hour. She would always do it. And that was just so. It was just. I don't know. Just felt. It was just. It just got so bad.
What role do you think social media plays in the end SARS movement?
I feel like obviously the media right now is the only source of hope for us gaining any progress when it comes to the government actually doing something about the end SARS movement. The government also sees the media as a threat, even to the point where they're currently trying to make a social media bill that would basically allow them to shut down the internet for the whole country, or target certain people that have been vocal about the end SARS protest. So they're currently attacking people, targeting people, arresting people that have gone to social media to spread word and spread awareness about the end SARS protest. So social media is the only way we're going to be able to get awareness from other countries as well, and also bring awareness to a lot of Nigerians as well, because if we're able to band together and be on the same page, we can do it through social media messaging, and yeah, we'll be able to conquer in the end.
Yeah, and I also think like social media is very important because it has been able to expose everything that's been happening, especially in Nigeria that we don't know of. Things that will not be brought to the light, unfortunately, because we have a corrupt system, and they would really prefer to, keep everything under wraps rather than letting the global world know about what's going on. I think social media has helped so much. I think, the other day when the Lekki Tollgate happened, we're able to see what was happening, through Instagram Live. Even though, it was gruesome to watch, but it was also like eye-opening because we were able to see how the Nigerian government committed some form of genocide on their own people. So social media has been able to like open a lot of things that shouldn't be happening, especially in the year 2020.
Do you feel like there was disproportionate support for end SARS in relation to other movements like the Black Lives Matter movement? If so, why do you think that is?
I think I didn't see the weight of the difference until I saw this video by one man. I don't even know what country he was from, but he was talking about how like so many countries, not just in America, even in Nigeria, we protested for Black lives, and like in Canada, it was in multiple countries, even in Europe, so many countries came out and protested for Black lives. So there's a huge difference because not that many countries. I've not seen like that much movement for NSAS in that many countries. Well, I would say at least before the Tollgate massacre. Before the Tollgate massacre, it felt like only Nigerians were fighting the battle for themselves.
I think there was, to most people, there might be, for me, there wasn't necessarily a disproportionate support for it. But to a lot of people, they might feel like there was some disproportionate support for the Black Lives Matter more than the NSARS movement, because for the Black Lives Matter movement, there's basically more people and it's more recognized because the population of Black people as a whole is what the Black Lives Matter movement was about. So Black lives in America, Black lives in Africa, Black lives in Australia, Black lives in Europe, everyone that was Black could relate to the Black Lives movement. And I feel like that was why there was so much attention in that compared to the NSARS movement that's just faced by a number of Nigerians. So I think Nigerians felt, a lot of Nigerians felt like the world was not giving as much attention to it. But that was mostly driven by the fact that it's not as many people that can relate or even understand what the NSARS movement is about. The NSARS movement stems from a deeper place of unqualified officials, unqualified system of government. Nigeria as a whole has more deeper rooted issues that actually stemmed and became and to have us have our police officials not perform well. So I think the movement gained a lot of attention from the media and everything, but as a like for most of the world, there's definitely more room to improve on our paying attention to these particular issues and movements. So there is definitely room for more attention to the movement, but I personally don't think the movement was not given as much attention as the Black Lives Matter movement.
Now that NSARS movement have gained worldwide coverage, do you think the government of Nigeria will start changing?
This is a very serious question. I hope. Do I think? I do not, because they're still in denial. But I think over time that there will be a change. So honestly, I think there would be. I think the government would start owning up to the things, because I remember that Hillary tweeted out Hillary Clinton. So there's people that's coming out and reaching out like to the government to do something. And if I'm embarrassed, I think the politicians should be embarrassed as well. So I do feel like in the long run, yes, they would start causing a reform, a change, because now they're being not only attacked by the Nigerians, but even, I wouldn't say attacked. Now they're being what is the word? Now they're being called out for not doing their jobs, not just by Nigerians, but by other people in higher places all over the world. So yes, in short, in the near future, I do believe that there would be a change.
I think it's a good way to start, because from what we've seen so far, NSARS started as a movement to reform the whole police department in Nigeria, but now it has turned into something of like a social revolution, a call for change from especially the youths of Nigeria. It has exploded into a topic that is being exploded into a topic that's being discussed amongst us as people, and I think it's very important to realize how it's important to realize that our voice really matters in times like this. It's important to realize that your voice could be heard through if anything, don't stay quiet. Fight for what you believe in, fight for what is right, and fight for your basic human rights.
I want justice for the victims of like the police brutality. I want like the release of the arrested protesters. I want like a complete reform of the police system. Like they should be taught. They don't. Some police officers are not taught. Like my family friends, the man that helped them, like the security in their house, went one day and was like, I want to join the police force. He went, he signed his papers, and he became a police officer. So they're not trained. They probably don't even know how to use guns. So I want like a complete reform. I want them to be trained to know their jobs. I want justice for all of the people that have, the families that have suffered. There was this one guy who that he was killed. His name is Chijioke. I don't remember his last name, but he was killed. And his father rose up 3 million naira for the police officers. And they didn't tell him they had killed his son, but he was asking for them to release his son. And this was SARS, to be precise. And after selling all of his property and raising this much money, they made him go and find his son in the river, like in a river of dead bodies. That kind of, I don't even know how to put it in words, but that is so unfair. And the SARS officer that did this to this man is still walking around free. And that is very, very unfair. So justice for the victims and their family members. I want like the politicians or like whoever it was that even assigned the Lekki Toge massacre. So the person that told the military to come and shoot at peaceful protesters, they need to be held accountable. They need to come out and say that they did it. And this actually, in reality, I don't see how it can work, because the people that have been ruling Nigeria since I was a child have been ruling Nigeria since before I was born. So they have so much power between them that I don't know if any of them can actually come out and say, I did this, or this person ordered the military to come shoot. So in reality, I don't know how possible this is, but I guess that's why we have this movement. That's why we're still pushing and we're still trying to get the word out there.
I feel like SARS should just entirely be disbanded and the police force should be reformed. That is the ideal picture. But I'm telling you, it's not going to happen. And that is sad. It is really sad that, like, I know what I want. I know what would be the ideal picture for Nigeria, but I know it's not going to happen. Like, I know it's not going to happen because there's just so much corruption. There's just so many problems, so many issues affecting it. There is the toxicity in our culture. There is the racial profiling, and it is not just the police that do it. The older generation does it. Our parents do it.
The kind of change I want to see in Nigeria is basically it boils down to three things, and I just saw this recently. It's tribalism. It's the main issues for Nigeria is tribalism, our disregard for science, and our greed. So for Nigeria, the only way the NSARS protest is actually going to become a successful movement that actually brought about change is if our politicians are able to stop being greedy, or we're able to band together and remove those politicians in our next election, or we can start messaging about reducing tribalism in Nigeria, because a lot of reasons why people in the positions where they can increase the salaries of the police force, or actually take those policing officers that have committed crimes and SARS officials that have committed crimes and put them to justice. The people in charge of that are usually driven by greed, and the greed to put their own family members into positions where they're not actually qualified for. So we have a lot of unqualified officials in very high positions. And because we have unqualified officials, we're not going to be able to make good quality policies that would actually drive the country to a better place. So in the long term, as a big goal or idea, we need to get rid of tribalism and greed in Nigeria, and replace the officials that have not been performing as they should have been. But then realistically, we need to start banding together as Nigerians to have the same message all across, because a lot of a major reason why the NSARS protest was frowned upon by the government was that there were a lot of looting. There was a lot of looting, and there was a lot of robbery and a lot of crime that was going on in the name of the NSAS protest. So if everyone as a country as a whole is able to band together and be on the same page, there'll be less chaos about the protests that have been happening. So there would be less reason for the government to come in and be more violent than they already have been.
Yeah, and I think in terms of change from this NSARS movement, I can see how we're moving into the form of holding ourselves accountable. That's something that Nigeria has really lacked. The accountability system in Nigeria is terrible. Like, nobody holds anybody accountable. You hear things like Monkey has stolen 35 million naira. You hear things like, oh, a snake ate like some million naira, like some millions of naira or whatnot. When you hear things like that, you start to ask yourself, like, do we really have a government, or do we have people that take us for fools? And do we have people that think we're stupid? You know, like, you just hear crazy stuff that comes out from like the government of Nigeria. You hear of individuals, people like Desiani stealing trillion worth of dollars from our economy, and somehow they get away with it. It's a lot of corruption in Nigeria that needs to change. It's a lot of accountability. We need to start holding everybody that everybody that has a seat of responsibility in Nigeria. We need to start holding them accountable and saying, oh, you say you're going to do this, so do it. If you're not doing it, then you have to leave that position. So that's how it has to be. We also need to see that, like I said, we also need to see a change in the social revolution, in the sense that we want to see better roads, we want to see better infrastructure, we want to see our education sector, like, we want to see them really focus on our education sector. There's a lot of children that go to school, and especially in public schools in Nigeria, that, you know, they sit in buildings that are not even like well constructed. They sit in buildings where there's no roof over their heads, and when sometimes it rains on the kids while they're in class. We need to see a change in our medical sector as well, in the sense that sometimes you hear of our president leaving our country so many times. He spends more time in England than he spends in Nigeria. That shouldn't be the case. He should not leave if he needs to seek medical help, he needs to work on the medical sector here in Nigeria, so that we have better equipment to help people that are in need of healthcare. We need better healthcare, and that is a sector that should be fixed. They shouldn't have to leave their country to seek better medical attention when they can work on their healthcare in their own country. So, yeah.
Are there any other movements going on in Africa that the students of Georgia Southern may or may not be aware of?
Yes, there's so many movements going on in Africa that the students at Georgia Southern should be aware of. There is one in Congo, and I'm just going to say the hashtags so that you guys can go, or the students at Georgia Southern can go check it out on social media. Congo is bleeding. For Namibia, shut it all down. For South Africa, am I next? For Cameroon, Anglophone crisis. For Liberia, rape national emergency. For Ivory Coast and Ghana, child trafficking.
Okay, so first off, we have Liberia. Liberia's major issue is rape. There has been like a 50% increase in the amount of rape cases they have in fact, in just the last 10 months, a 50% increase in that is a lot. 50% is a lot, a whole lot. And then Nigeria's cases and SARS before Namibia's problem is gender-based violence. So it's essentially domestic violence against women and married women, women with families, and how they are being ignored constantly. Then we have, what is it? Congo, the case with the minors, and also, what is it? Kidnapping, sexual violence, rape. It's just the poor conditions essentially of people and workers in the line of business of mining. Yes, then Ivory Coast and Ghana, child labor and child trafficking. There has been such a huge increase in the past year, and that is something that has to come to light. Then South Africa, there's still xenophobia and battles against gender-based violence and rape, gender-based violence as in domestic violence against women mostly. And then, yeah, but that is essentially it.
I definitely want to make a push to increase the attention to all these different countries as well.
Yeah, because especially in like a lot of other countries, it's not a lot of people that have the access to social media. People don't have access to phones. They're not privileged enough to even say, "Oh, They're not even thinking of posting nothing. They're just thinking of like trying to get out of the situation they find themselves in. They don't have the means to record something and post it, or they don't have the means to reach out to anybody else. So I feel like it's important for people to understand that, you know, if they come across like things like this, things happening in Africa, things happening around you, speak up. Don't be afraid to share and let the person right next to you know that, you know, people are actually going through this, you know, bring an attention to it. So, you know, the international community can be aware of what's going on and we can try and seek change.